Hey guys, and welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. Back in February, I reviewed the previous generation Razer Blade Stealth and loved it. It featured a great design, very portable form factor, and decent internal hardware. But despite succeeding in many ways, some potential buyers were put off by the laptop's enormous bezels, ultimately settling for a device that offered more screen real estate in the same footprint. Razer acknowledged this criticism of their ultra-portable, and rather than waiting for a new Intel processor generation to debut a refreshed variant, the company has pushed out an updated Razer Blade Stealth well under a year after its predecessor hit the market. You won't see massive improvements here, but there's enough small changes to push this laptop closer to perfection. So what are these changes? Well, the first addresses the main issue, the bezel size. The Blade Stealth is now available with a 13.3-inch display instead of 12.5 inches in the very same chassis. This means slimmer bezels and more screen real estate, 13% more to be precise, without sacrificing anything from a design perspective. The resolution of the entry-level model is higher as well, moving from 2560 by 1440 at 234 ppi up to 3200 by 1800 at 276 ppi. The new Blade Stealth also swaps out the decent Synaptics touchpad in the previous model for a superior precision certified unit. This means the trackpad is fully compatible with Windows 10 gestures and supports basically the best and most accurate tracking experience available in modern Windows machines. The trackpad used here is seriously responsive and undoubtedly provides an excellent experience in all facets. The glass finish, it also feels simply superb. The other notable change comes to the configuration options available. Razer has culled all models with less than 16 gigabytes of RAM, a Core i7 CPU, and a 256 gig SSD. That means the $900 model with a Core i5 CPU, 8 gig of RAM, and a 128 gig SSD, and that non-touch display is no longer available. The new entry-level model comes equipped with a Core i7 7500U, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and a 256 gig SSD, and will set you back $1,399. Unfortunately, this is a $150 price hike on the equivalent model from the previous generation, and models with 512 and 1 terabytes of storage are available for $1,600 and $2,000 respectively, the same price as the previous top-end 4K models from last gen. Oh, and there's a new gunmetal grey model available, which swaps out not just the matte black finish, but the acid green Razer logo for a more understated grey finish with black logo. I received a black model to review, and after seeing the photos, I think I still prefer this variant to the gunmetal, though, it's still nice to have a few new color options. Design-wise, the new Blade Stealth is basically identical to its predecessor, aside from the slimmer bezels. You're getting the same outstanding machined aluminium unibody, which looks premium. It's both slim and light. And if you love previous Razer builds, you love the MacBook Pro style of laptop, then of course you will love the Blade Stealth 2017. The keyboard is also the same, with great tactile feedback and individually customizable RGB lighting. It's also a breeze to type on. I/O ports, well, they're also the same, with Thunderbolt 3, USB 3.0 and a 3.5mm headphone jack on the left, as well as a full-sized HDMI 2.0A port and another USB 3.0 port on the right. So let's go back a little and talk further about the Blade Stealth's new display, a 13.3-inch IGZO LCD with a resolution of 3200 by 1800. The smaller bezels here make a significant difference to the aesthetics of the laptop. Previous models looked a bit ridiculous with the massive black strips around all sides, but this new model is much more reasonable. Sure, you're not getting Dell XPS like no bezel frames, however I still think Razer's screen to bezel ratio used here is now perfectly acceptable. Looking at display performance on the new Blade Stealth was tricky, as Razer seemed to have implemented a dynamic contrast and brightness feature that cannot be disabled unless you contact customer support. For this reason, I won't give exact numbers for how the display performs, because performance varies significantly depending on the amount of dark colors on the screen. It also makes the Blade Stealth largely unsuitable for color accurate work anyway. However, I will say brightness is very good. It reaches a peak of over 400 nits when displaying all white. Contrast, as best determined in static conditions, is around the same as the previous Blade Stealth's contrast of 1100 to 1. Color temperature is also pretty good, falling around 6700K on average, though gamma is significantly impacted by the dynamic contrast, and Grayscale Delta E 2000 performance changes dynamically as well. As for colors, the IGZO panel, glossy finish, low gap between the glass and display leads to fantastic viewing angles and colors that really pop. For casual use, the dynamic contrast feature doesn't detract from how good the display looks in general. Color results appear to fall in the average Delta 2000 range of 3.0 to 5.0. That wouldn't be suitable for color accurate work even if the dynamic contrast feature was disabled. And it's also worth mentioning the display covers 97.6% of the sRGB spectrum. Compared to previous generation Blade Stealths with their 1440p display, the new Blade Stealth color performance is roughly the same, so there's no degradation from the increased display size or resolution. In fact, the brightness is better from this new display, which helps when using the laptop outdoors. As I mentioned earlier, Razer has simplified their configuration options with the new Blade Stealth, so it's easy to get a read on the performance provided by this laptop. As it stands right now, there is only one main hardware configuration available: an Intel Core i7 7500U processor with 16GB of RAM and a QHD+ touchscreen display. Storage is the one hardware component that can be modified. There's 256 and 512GB options, as well as a 1TB option, all available. The Core i7 7500U isn't a new CPU. In fact, it's the same Kaby Lake dual core found in the previous Razer Blade Stealth I reviewed earlier this year. So we're still seeing 2 cores, 4 threads clocked at 2.7 GHz with the boost frequency up to 3.5 GHz. The Blade Stealth has integrated graphics only, in this case Intel's HD 620. Some people seem to get surprised when I mentioned that a Razer product doesn't include dedicated graphics, considering Razer's roots in PC gaming, but the Blade Stealth isn't designed for gaming. It's an ultra portable, just like other slim 13-inch machines. I'm not going to spend a lot of time discussing the performance of the new Blade Stealth because it's basically identical to its predecessor. This isn't surprising. Both the CPU and RAM is the same as in its previous model. In some tests, the old Blade Stealth is faster. In other tests, the new one is faster, but on average, everything is about equal. I actually like the fact Razer has removed the Core i5 model with 8GB of RAM and a 128GB SSD, instead opting for variants that include better components. I think 128GB of storage, it's too light or too tight for modern machine, so I'd always recommend people purchase, the more expensive model anyway. One of the more interesting areas of the Blade Stealth to assess is the battery life. This model comes with the same battery capacity as its predecessor, 53.6 watt hours. However, we're now seeing a larger display at a higher resolution. Razer still claims the Blade Stealth is good for up to 9 hours of battery life, the same as the 1440p model previously. So in their eyes, the new screen has had, no effect on battery life. In practice though, battery life has been reduced slightly from the previous model. I don't think battery life is particularly fantastic. However, at the same time, in general usage, I didn't think it was terrible. You'll still get a fairly decent length of time out of the battery in this model. The previous Blade Stealth was a fantastic ultra portable, but this new version addresses some minor flaws to make it a near perfect option for those wanting a capable 13-inch productivity machine. Sometimes you only need to make a few tweaks to a winning formula, and Razer has really demonstrated that here. I do think it's a little strange though that Razer didn't wait until Intel's 8th generation core processors were available before launching a refreshed Blade Stealth. While this laptop includes top-end hardware right now, it might be superseded by new CPUs in just a few months. Perhaps Razer will unveil yet another Blade Stealth when Intel's new CPUs hit the market, though it's too early to say at the moment. But in general, when all the factors combined, the Razer Blade Stealth ends up as a superb option, and there's no doubt that Razer knows this because the company has increased the price of the now base model by $150, now sitting at $1,399 which makes the laptop pretty expensive even considering its decent array of hardware. This is another one of those cases where if you want the best on the market, you'll have to pay a premium. Whether or not you can stomach the price is up to you, but as far as I'm concerned, the Razer Blade Stealth is the best ultra portable currently available. Anyway, that's it for this review of the Razer Blade Stealth for mid-2017. I really hope Razer doesn't ask for this laptop back too soon because I'm loving using it at the moment. If you're interested in buying one, we'll have links to that in the description below, and I'll catch you in our next laptop review.